So this is 1970. So 1970, and it's in Germany. So by 1970, I think even by like 1940, smallpox is pretty much gone from Europe. But it does occur in other countries in Asia, South America, Africa. And so this is a case, it's described here on this next page. So let me describe it this way. December 31st, convenient for our timing here, 1969, a German, he comes back to Dusseldorf, this is in West Germany, from Karachi, which is in Pakistan. And he goes back to his home in Germany, in this city. So before he left, so he spent a few months in Pakistan, and it says before he left, he had a single dose of vaccine, and then in Turkey, he was unsuccessfully vaccinated with live smallpox vaccine. So that's a kind of a key point, is that I think back then the smallpox vaccine was something like 60% effective. So you could get it and you wouldn't know whether you're actually vaccinated or not. They later upped it into the 90s. It's kind of an interesting story. It's just using a specific needle, it worked much better. But I think even today, a lot of the vaccines will be 95% effective. Remember, this is day 0 is kind of January 1st here. So by January 10th, he has a fever. So 10 days later, he has a fever. And then the next day, he goes to the infectious disease isolation ward. They suspect that he has typhoid fever. So they're very careful. They isolate him in a private room in the isolation ward. He's at an infectious disease hospital. So what happens then? Well, the 11th to 14th, days after he started this, after he returns to Germany, he feels well enough to, sketching and painting, it says here. They know, they're sure he just stayed in that room. And then, well, here's what happens next. He actually turns out to have smallpox. And they figure it out, I think, when he gets a rash on the 14th. So this is him, case number 1. He's this 20-year-old. He has a fever on January 10th, a rash on the 14th. They're like, uh-oh, this is smallpox. So this is an infectious disease hospital that he's in. And there's a bunch of other people there quarantined for other reasons. So what they did was pretty much as soon as they could vaccinate everyone else in the hospital. So they do this. These are the other vaccines, and these are going to be other patients. So these other patients, they vaccinated them, but you can see January 16th, patient number 2 is a 5-year-old girl. They try to give her this vaccine, but she still develops the fever on January 23rd, the rash the 25th. Then there's actually a nurse with patient number 3. She's a 17-year-old female, and she dies from smallpox. They try to vaccinate her also. You can see some of the younger people didn't have previous vaccinations. Some of the older ones, had older vaccinations. So anyways, so this one person coming from Pakistan in this infectious disease hospital infects these other 18 people. And then these last two, 19 and 20, are secondary ones. So 19 got it from number 17, and 20 got it from number 15. And then that is where they contained it. And you can see what happened. 4 deaths, 2, 3, 4 people died. We're talking about smallpox. It transmits through respiratory droplets, just like COVID-19, respiratory droplets. So you've probably all heard how to prevent this. Well, you stay social distance, stay 6 feet away, wear a mask, those types of things. And it's thought that respiratory droplets are different than aerosols. So aerosols are small things that can float long ways in the air, but respiratory droplets are typically, they say, 6 feet. They're heavier things that fall from your breath or sneezing or whatever. This takes a little explaining, but the patient 1, this is the 20-year-old who flew back from Pakistan. He is in this room here. So this is kind of a 3D, it's a 3-floor hospital. 1, 2, 3 floors. This is kind of the front view. Here he is, patient 1 is in this window here. second floor, third floor, and they're in the roof. And then this is kind of an interior view. Patient 1 is right here in this room. And in the room right above him is 18. And above him or her is 13. You can see here, 1, 18, 13. So that's patient 18, patient 13. And then what they did was, he was in his room the whole time. So they're like, well, how did it get transmitted? So they think it's some kind of airflow. So what they did was go into his room, after the hospital's all emptied and everything, and set off a little smoke bomb. So this is what they've got, the smoke pattern. So they're trying to track how airflow travels throughout the building. And what they notice is this. So this is actually, if the window is open, some of the smoke comes out and rises up in this pattern. And they noted that if these other windows are open, some of the smoke will go into these rooms. So 10, 13, 12, 18, that's how they think it got it. The air carried these droplets out of his window, up, and then into their room, into their window. That's how they think these three people, these 18, got it. Now, the other thing they noticed, they set off, I told you, this smoke bomb in his room. It spread throughout, adjoining rooms. So there's 2 people in his adjoining room. The smoke travels over and goes up this is a stairwell that goes up the building like this. So on the second floor, the air, there's apparently no doors or anything, but the air, the smoke kind of came in and went down the second floor hallway. And they think that got into these other people here. And then similar on the third floor, there's a patient 5 is right off the stairwell. These others are near the stairwell. So that's how they figured out how smallpox was transmitted throughout this hospital.